Good evening, everyone. We'll welcome everyone to this meeting this evening. It's our regular meeting, but happens to be happening on Wednesday, October the 12th, because Monday was a holiday. So welcome to everyone here in the room. Welcome to those that are online and those who will come along. We'll get started right away. We have a set of rules and procedures by which we conduct the business of the Select Board here in Guilford. The main issue to speak about, since Rusty's not here to read that statement, the main issue to speak about is civility. That we conduct our conversations with one another with openness and kindness and understanding as much as we possibly can. I would also say that in general, all comments that are to be made to the Select Board need to be made to the chair, and the chair will then answer comments. And it's not actually okay for individual citizens to speak to individual Select Board members. Those comments need to come to the chair.
Everything's in the chat.
And if you need to find information, if you're online, you want to understand this a little more, there is information on the chat about that. It's also, all this information is also available on our website. So thank you. We will start by welcoming the public, and I'll turn it right over to, as is our practice, to Miranda.
Okay, so this is the community comment period, and today we have Mary Wisman speaking with us about something she's worked hard on that's really important. So Mary, do you want to come closer to us?
If I should.
No, I mean, you can just grab a chair.
Sure.
This is
Let's sit
not,
down here.
it's not school.
I'd be more comfortable if it was school.
I'm gonna pretend then.
Hello, everyone. I'm Mary Wisman. I was going to introduce myself by saying, I guess I will. My husband and I bought property here in 1997, and he began building the house in 1998, and it's almost finished at this point. I am here tonight on behalf of the V.S.A members and the voters of Guilford, whether or not they may be aware of it. I'm going to read from something that my friend Connie Burton and I have put together. And I'm not a public speaker really, so I'm going to read basically from this. As in the past, Guilford voters were expecting to vote for Guilford's JP candidates on...
Excuse me, did you want to ask if we hand out those things?
Sure.
Okay. Is it okay if we hand out copies of this to the people who are in the audience? Just
Sure.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
We should have some here too.
Okay, and also just say,
Okay, then we're all set.
Oh, sure,
Okay.
sure. So again, I'm here on behalf of the Board of Civil Authority as a Justice of the Peace member myself. And there was a meeting last night, which I will mention in just a moment, with the other members of the Justice of the Peace. I hope I said that correctly. So as in the past, the Guilford voters were expecting to vote for Guilford's JP candidates, the Justice of the Peace candidates, on the November 8th general election ballot. A deadline was missed to include the JP candidates on the state ballot. In accordance with the present Vermont election laws revised in May of 2021, the general election state ballots were mailed directly to all Vermont voters on all town and city voter checklists by the Vermont Secretary of State. And this is something, I believe that this is the first time that this has happened, correct? Yes, so there were possibly a number of different deadlines that were scheduled to be met, and that's where the confusion happened. So the Guilford citizens who are JP candidates followed the required Vermont statutes to complete their paperwork to be JP candidates. They rightfully expected to be candidates on the list, and when we received our ballots, some of you maybe have noticed that the Justice of the Peace candidates were not on the ballot. Let's see. So when this happened, myself, I was surprised myself and Connie Burton put our heads together to see what could maybe be done to remedy the situation. And at this point, we did meet last night with the other Justice of the Peace members, and we have put together a ballot. I'm sorry, I'm stumbling. We have put together a ballot. And let me back up a minute. So when the Justice of the Peace candidates were missed on the ballot, first of all, the remedy was, or what people thought they should do. They did what they thought that they should do, and they mailed out ballots to a particular set of voters. It didn't go to everybody, as well as I believe it was posted that you could request a ballot to vote for the JP candidates. And Connie and I felt that this wasn't good enough, that it needed to go to everyone. And so we've created a ballot. We met last night with the other Justice of the Peace members, and they unanimously approved what we put together. And so hopefully you will be getting a new ballot in the mail, and Connie's going to speak a little bit, if it's okay, to the cost of that. We hope that this will be out to you before February, where are we? Before October 19th, which is 20 days before the November 8th election. And that's when it should get to you. So I guess we're asking your seal of approval for what we've put together for the ballot, and the cost is the bigger piece.
Great. I'd like to just say a couple of things. It's
Yes.
great, but just to be very clear that while you met with other justices of the peace last night, you
Yes.
also met as part of the Board of Civil Authority. That's
Yes.
actually the board that makes this decision. It's not the justices of the peace.
Right.
Just to be very clear.
Okay.
That the justices of the peace are part of the Board of Civil Authority, which also includes select board members.
Right.
And so just want to make that clear to the community. That it
Yes,
wasn't
I'm
just the
still
justices.
learning as well,
Yeah.
as we've talked
We're all
about.
learning through this
Yes.
circumstance. It's really impressive, yeah, the amount of what I've learned, so, yes.
And we all did approve of it, and in a very civil meeting, really
That's great.
gracious meeting.
John, I have a question.
Just 1 second, Richard, we'll save that question. I think we'd like to hear from Connie next about the costs, and then we'll talk with you, Richard.
Yes, I'm Connie Burton, live on Weatherhead Hollow Road, and am part of the Board of Civil Authority also, and was at the meeting last night. I just wanted to mention one thing about the ballot too that we put together. After researching what should go on a ballot, it was discovered in the statutes that every ballot that goes out has to have a place for write-ins, I guess I should call them, and the ballot that was sent out to try to remedy the situation of it not being on the general election ballot had no places for write-ins, so that we took into consideration when we put together a new ballot. As far as costs, it's a little bit difficult to exactly pinpoint costs because there are various ways in which we sort of propose that this be done. And as a result of talking with Penny last night at our meeting, we found out that a lot of these things can be done in-house. For example, one thing that we didn't know was whether or not there'd be enough of the official envelopes to use, but Penny informed us last night that yes, there is indeed money enough for that. So I don't know whether they're an expense to the town or whether, I'm not sure how you get those, but we would have no way of knowing how much they cost either. Also, labels. Penny said that she would be able to do labels there needs to be 2 sets of labels of everybody on the voter checklist. And she says that she would be able to do that. Well, I don't know how much those labels would cost. And also copying the ballots, there would need to be, 1,721, I think she said. And I assume there's enough paper here in the office, but again, don't know how much that would cost. It was pointed out that to use the copy machine, we should try not to do it during business hours because the machine is too busy during that period of time. So if we did it on a Friday when the office is not open, or a Saturday or something like that. So the only real cost that, and also we know that there's going to be plenty of volunteer help because all the people who were here at the V.S.A meeting last night were very willing to help out, with volunteer labor. And I'm sure that, if we just make the need known, there's other people that would join that labor force as well. So the only thing that, and here again, don't really know exactly how much with the postage. If we use a 60-cent stamp and that the mailing that we're considering and proposing that we do, I think will weigh the same as the mailing that was previously sent out, and that was right at the 60-cent threshold. So if we have to pay 60 cents a piece for those to go out, it would be $1,051.80. The town does have a bulk mail permit, which apparently isn't used a whole lot, but we would have no idea of how much that costs either. And I think that, Kathy Wilkin, for one, at the B.C.A meeting last night, said she was very familiar with how to use the bulk mail permit, and Sheila also mentioned that too. So hopefully that cost would be less, but so right now it's really just the postage and then the stuff that you already have in-house that it would appear to be the cost of it.
Thank you. Great. Good.
Well, I also wanted to point out for Richard and anybody else who wasn't at the meeting last night that this is on our agenda. We just wanted in the community comment to give the people who put together this ballot some uninterrupted time just to say what they had done and to tell the neighbors.
Great. So I think, Richard, if you don't mind, what we'll do is we're going to adjust the agenda here in just a moment and put the JP ballot mailing up at the very top of the agenda. And so we'll take this up in just a couple of minutes, okay?
Thank you.
Sure.
Oh, sure, yes.
I'm sorry,
Yes.
this is,
That's great. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Look right at the camera and say it.
okay, so Connie's mentioning that we talked about doing this while the town office was closed. I wanted to say to it just reminded me that Penny is keeping the town office open on Friday, October 14th from noon to 5, and Saturday, October 15th from 8 to 2 to receive property tax payments. This is in response to a number of requests that in the past years. Also to note that no other town business will be transacted during those hours, just payment of taxes.
Okay, that's good
So,
to know.
Thank you, sorry about forgetting that.
All right. So, thank you. Is there anything else on the committee?
No.
All right, thank you.
you.
So now we will move to the next order of business on the agenda, which is changes to the agenda order.
And I'd like to suggest that we move D on new business, which is JP Ballot Mailing, to right after the approval of the minutes for the 9/26/22 meeting.
Are we okay with that? I think we can just consensus that. Yes. We have consensus. All right. Okay, thank you. Then we'll do that in just a moment. So the next order of business would be to approve the minutes of September 26th. So accept that.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
All right, Rusty, thank you. Is there any discussion about those minutes?
Thanks for making them.
Yes, thank you. All right, we'll take a roll call. Richard, were you willing to? Aye. Michael?
Aye.
Rusty?
Aye.
Miranda?
Aye.
And Zon says aye, so we've approved those minutes. All right. Then next, we'll talk about the JP ballot mailing. And I just want to say a couple of things, Richard, and then we'll go right to you. I just want to acknowledge that we've learned a lot during this process. And one of the things that that I learned, I did not know that there is one specific place in the entire elections process that the select board can step into the process. Otherwise, all elections are to be operated and managed by the town clerk, which is currently an elected position in Guilford. So the one place that we can step in is the precise place that the Board of Civil Authority has asked us to step in, which is to request that a mailing be made to the entire community for a mailed ballot. And that's, we don't technically have to do that because it's already been done now by the Board of Civil Authority. And Penny, who operates who is our town clerk, who operates the elections process, has already agreed to do it. So the point that we're doing here, what we're going to talk about now, is simply that we're going to sign on to this, I hope, and approve it, which means that the budget it will be okay for us to move forward in order to get this ballot out. That's what I'd like to say. Richard, did you have a question?
Okay, so you answered some of my questions, but I was curious about why the town clerk wasn't doing this. I thought that it was her authority that creates ballots. So that's one question, and I think that you might have answered that, because the justices of the peace were saying that we created this ballot. That doesn't sound to me like it has the proper authority to be a ballot.
Right.
If we can create a ballot, then anybody can create a ballot. So
Yes, I think.
I was wondering.
I think that what happened in this case, and correct me if I'm wrong, but as I understand it, they worked together last night to agree on a ballot that Penny then approved at the meeting. So in fact, her authority has been the final authority in this ballot production.
Okay, and then my other question, because you've answered the other ones, is what happens to the ballot that I sent in voting for the justices of the peace?
And I think, I'll try speaking to that, but please be on the ready if I don't say something correct. What I understand is going to happen is that everyone who receives this new ballot is going to understand that if they already sent in a previous ballot, that previous ballot, or if they're holding one, that's an invalid ballot, and it won't be counted in the election. So everyone will receive a new ballot, and in order for that vote to be counted, they have to complete that ballot.
Yes, and I might just say that we have.
So my ballot will be destroyed, the one
Yes,
that I sent in?
yes.
We had thought that because of the confusion that might arise,
Yeah,
that there should be a half sheet
explanation.
explanation, and at the bottom of that, it was said that, that any ballot you previously received should be destroyed because it won't be counted, and the town office will destroy it as well. So that, putting that in there, I think
Yeah.
would make it pretty clear.
That's great.
If I
good.
could
think that's perfect.
add to that,
Yes.
Penny had mentioned last night that she sent out approximately 120 some of the other ballots, the JP ballots, and has only received 14. So that's good news, I think.
Okay, that's good.
So did that answer your questions, Richard?
I think it does.
Okay, it was a very good meeting last night, and,
I'm sorry I missed it.
Yeah, I'm
well,
sorry.
that's okay, you
I'm
know,
sorry, I missed it as well.
Son, can I add one more important detail?
Sure.
We discussed last night, and a lot of us didn't know, that the Justice of the Peace ballot cannot be put in the same ballot as the general election ballot. The same envelope, sorry, in the same envelope.
So
So,
if people are sitting on there, if, like I, for instance, have not voted yet, I
yes,
should not presume that I can put the original ballot, the real, the statewide ballot, and
Yes.
this new JP ballot in the same envelope. I have to mail twice.
right.
Okay.
And that will be put.
That will also be
That's
clear
on
on
here,
this,
yes.
on the half sheet. Steve.
And if that does happen, does that negate both votes? Because I think my personal feeling on this is that to get the JP ballot put together puts the full voting of the November 8th election in doubt in my mind, in jeopardy, because how many people are gonna say, well, I'm just gonna take this one and put them in here and drop them in the thing? And if when they're pulled out, both of those votes are then negated because they're not sent in right. This could have a large impact just by people thinking to do the normal thing. Why would I have two separate envelopes with my name in the upper left-hand corner? And I have to separate them and take two separate envelopes and drop them in the box. So I just would want people to think about that.
All right, so I'm going to say, this is a very good point, Steve, and I appreciate all these points. I think though, in fact, these are not issues for the select board to deal with. They're not under our purview, they're not under our authority. So I think that if we could collect these questions and get them to Penny so that she can address them appropriately.
I have one other thought, is if someone did send in their absentee ahead of time because they knew they were going to be out of the country or, away from their home for the next several months, I'm not sure there's a plan for that.
Yeah.
Well, if people sent in their regular ballot, their ballot for all of the offices that weren't justice of the peace, that's fine. Those ballots are not going to be invalid. It's just,
Those will still count?
So long as they don't have both ballots in an envelope.
in other words, the justice of the peace section was not in with the other statewide ballots, and some people received the absentee ballot that for the JPs that Penny had provisionally sent in, but those wouldn't have been put in the same envelope. They had their own envelope. They had their own way of dealing with it, and anybody who read the instructions would not. Am I answering your question?
Well, are we accepting a two-part? We're not, right? So, for example, Richard said he sent his absentee in already, right? I mean, for those who have sent their absentee in.
No, the absentee ballots are,
It's all right, there are 14 of them.
Yeah,
14 individuals. Penny can figure out whether or not she needs to contact 14 people and talk with them.
okay.
The question that you have is there may come some ballots that come with both ballots inside the envelope. Will those be invalidated? That's another question for Penny to anticipate, how she wants to deal with that and address that. But that's not a decision we can make. We can simply advise the town clerk about this.
Do you have I know that you're shooting for October, a week from now, you'd like to get these in the mail. Do you have a schedule of when this will be done and when this will be printed and that will be done? Because you got to stick on 12,800 or something like that, labels and stamps. I've done a few mailings myself, that would take from,
Let me just say that the statute, you're right, Mary, in saying that the statute requires that the ballots be available 20 days prior to the election, or when the ballot is available.
yeah.
and I apologize, I shouldn't have been talking there, I should have been asking you, is there a set deadline? Because the worst case scenario then is all of a sudden it's the 19th, it's 20 days ahead of time, and it's not ready to go. So then, I'm just saying we have to, just having this part done doesn't get it's nowhere near getting this thing in the mail and avoiding the chaos that it will potentially cause for the general election.
Right, another question for Penny to deal with, address, yes. Connie?
Okay, and just answering for Mary and I, we didn't want to put together a schedule before the select board had approved the mailing going out, so that decision was last night by the V.S.A, and then tonight is the select board, and then we are well aware of the fact that it's not very long and it's a lot of work to put together.
Okay. So I think that all of these questions are going to be going to all these issues will go to Penny, to the town clerk now. It's our job to determine whether or not we want to approve of sending a ballot to every household, or every voter in Guilford. So I would entertain a motion. Well, I'll just make the motion that we do this, that we approve this.
Okay,
Sure. And then we'll discuss it in just a second. I will move to remedy the B.C.A. actions of the JP ballot errors by sending out a new ballot to all voters in town. All right?
I'll second it.
All right. Okay. Discussion, Richard.
Okay, so I think it has to be clearer than that it's a new ballot for the Justice of the Peace candidates, or something like that. Not a general election ballot. I think it's very important to make that distinction.
Yes, it needs, yes, to remedy the JP ballot portion. Okay. Any further discussion in the community? Steve?
I don't think you should do that until you get these questions answered. I mean, that's my personal opinion, that, that how is it gonna, what's it gonna look like? And how clear is it gonna be that these two ballots cannot go in the same envelope?
Steve, we discussed this at the Board of Civil Authority meeting last night. I mean, we didn't discuss the particular detail about people putting the statewide ballot and the JP ballot in the same envelope. But I think the Board of Civil Authority was unanimous in supporting the plan and the process that Connie and Mary outlined about how they were going to accomplish this. And so we don't want to, I think it would be unwise to have a greater delay in doing this. And I would really encourage you to speak more with the people who are going to be doing this to help achieve even greater clarity.
We're just requesting.
Funding for the mailing anyway, really, so why not just do that now?
Yeah.
And then they work out the details.
Yeah.
The details aren't up to us, that's
No.
correct.
No?
I think that also the other issues that Penny may find that there is this amount of money available in the budget, a line item already, and she has authority to spend that money. So we're simply seconding this effort at this point.
I have another question, Tom.
Yes,
Is it clear that this whole operation is under the leadership of Guilford's town clerk?
the town clerk is the operator and the executor of our elections. That is clear. The only place if your question is the select board's engagement, the only place the select board can act in any election is to request that a ballot be sent to every single voter.
I'm just wondering whether the motion should include the fact that it would be under the leadership of the town clerk, or is that replicative?
Oh, I think, yeah, I see.
Does it say
I think we don't have to go. Could we say, put that in there?
support the V.S.A. actions to remedy the justice of the peace ballot by sending out a new ballot for all voters in town? I think that, Penny's part of the V.S.A., right?
Yes.
Okay, so it's in, I think it's
in-
completely
I think
implied.
I think it's there. Okay. Connie?
And if I can just say too, there was a roll call vote yesterday. And so Penny, obviously.
And she voted?
She voted and she
Okay.
voted yes.
All right, good. Some more evidence. Okay, so with all that discussion and all these issues, I will take a vote. Did we get a second?
Yeah.
Yes,
That was
Miranda
Brenda.
seconded.
Thank you very much, Brenda. All right, Richard,
Yes.
Michael,
Aye.
Rusty,
Aye.
Miranda,
Aye.
Zahn says aye. Right, thank you very much for all your hard work and all that we've learned in this process.
Yes, and thanks to Penny too, who
Yes,
worked
thank you.
so
Penny,
very
for
hard.
that. Yeah, I think it would be worth just saying one more thing, and that the justice of the peace across Vermont, the inclusion of justice of peace on a general ballot has been done traditionally at the kindness of the Secretary of State. There's no statutory requirement that the JP names be on that ballot. Many communities, in fact, do run their own elections like we're getting ready to run with their own ballot for the justice of the peace. There's nothing that demands the Secretary of State to do it. It's only out of their willingness over the years to do it. So it was simply a matter that, as you suggested, Mary, schedules changed and things changed, and it caused us to miss the deadline. So that's why we're in this situation we're in right now. So with everyone's grace, we will manage
Check
this,
that
I
out.
hope well. Yes, thank you very much. Let's move on, please, to the highway under the section called updates and reports. So Dan.
Well, the paving over on the Hinesburg Road is all done, and it's all been gravel shoulders. They finished up down in Algiers yesterday paving. Hopefully tomorrow or Friday, they'll come in and shoulder the school road, Center Road, and down there. The other thing is that all this new pavement we got, we need to do center lines.
Yes.
I called 2 companies. One company said they forget it, they're not even gonna, because they ain't got time to do it. But they're both the same prices. It's 20 cents a foot for a double center line. And if we want edge lines, it's 7.5 cents a foot
Yeah, in addition.
in addition.
On each, 7.5, 7.5?
Yeah.
Or 7.5 for both?
No, 7.5, 7.5.
Okay.
And center line is 20 cents per foot. So, and he can come in, this guy's out of Orange, Mass. He'll probably come in, if we do this, I just gotta let him know what we're gonna do, but center lines are a must. We need to do the center lines.
And so do we are awaiting a proposal?
I'm just waiting to say, hey, edge lines, center lines.
I see. So the reason to tell us this is because the cost is.
Right, yeah, the cost.
Okay.
Yeah, you're looking at we paved about 4.5 mile. So you're looking at 20 cents, you're looking at probably a little over $6,000 for the center lines.
Okay.
And then your edge lines are gonna be a little more, they'll be more than that,
Okay, so,
And we got about 12.5 miles of blacktop, so.
all right. So, do I understand that we'll have another opportunity to look at this financially? Do you need approval for?
I would like to get the center lines done as quick as possible. Because this time of year, you get foggy nights and
Yeah,
you're
absolutely.
traveling a black road and you ain't got nothing to follow, so. But
We don't have an estimate though, except
he just gave me a foot per foot.
so long as we could approve the center lines. It would be smart to have him do everything at once.
Usually what they do is they come in, he has he's one color. He'll probably come in and squirt
Oh, I see.
the center lines and then come back another date with the white.
Okay.
Dan, you said 20 cents a foot, 4 miles?
About 4.5 miles.
5,428 times 20 is only $1,085.
That's a little more than that. That's per mile.
That's per mile for
5,280
Yeah, times 4.
times 20,
20
Times
cents.
20 cents
yeah,
gets you 1,000.
do a mile,
Times 4.
and then add it by
4.5 miles.
4.5. It's about
Okay.
a little over $6,000.
Yeah, okay, so you've done a little bit of that.
Oh, I've done, yeah.
And so,
You're probably looking between center lines and edge lines, you're gonna be looking at anywhere as close to,
10.
I think the last time he did it was like, of course it was cheaper. He sprayed edge lines back in 19. And it was, I think we spent like $6,000 for edge lines back then.
I'm coming up with $8,553.60.
For center lines?
For both.
No, I think you're gonna be a little more than that. Cause you're doing 12.5 miles.
I thought you said 4.5.
No, well, no, if we're doing edge lines, we'll do everything, all the blacktops.
Yeah.
But center lines will be just the new pavement.
Oh, so you,
Oh, I see, okay. The edge lines are for all of our paved roads.
Yes.
I see.
That
Oh.
aren't state highway,
Huh?
that aren't state highway.
The state comes in and sprays our center line once, and I like them come in the springtime when you really need the lines. And if you do any paving or any other stuff, it's up to us just to do that.
Well, I would, let's see, I guess I'd be more, I'd be comfortable it feels a little too wishy-washy for me this evening to.
Why don't we just approve the center lights and then worry?
If that's, like I said, I would go, the center lines are a must.
Okay, well, let's do that.
And if we want to decide before snow flies, to do the edge lines, we can go from there. That's if it's not too cold and he's still doing it.
Can we approve the center line paving, or center line painting, not to exceed $6,000?
I would go figure
Well,
4.5.
Give us a figure.
Yeah,
What would you say?
I would say no more than 7,500.
Okay,
Just the cover.
Okay.
And when he sprays them, he's got a meter in his truck. It counts the lines, the footage.
And is there, we've got funds to cover this? Okay. All right, any further questions? So I will make a motion to approve the painting of the center lines on the newly paved portions of Guilford's roads at a cost not to exceed $7,500.
I second.
Thank you, Richard. Is there any further discussion? All right, Richard? Will you
Yes.
vote? Vote, all right. Michael?
Aye.
Right.
aye,
Consensus, aye.
okay, there it is.
Then our next meeting, we'll be doing sand bids, because we gotta get sand bids out. The salt's under state contract, so that's whatever the state gets for a price, that's what we get. They honor the towns.
Okay,
The other thing is that I had to order tires for 2 or 3 of the trucks, so that's gonna be a little expensive bill there, because what I do is I got extra rims, and I have summer tires and winter studded, so just soon as winter's over, we pull them, put our summer tires on, and the tires that we've had on them 3 trucks, we've gotten over 5 years out of them, and it's time to put new tires on. When we run chains, especially on the blacktop, it just chews them tires right up. So we try to get what we can out of them.
okay.
And then the other thing is right now, he's probably finish up mowing middle of next week. We're trying to get leaves blown in between before this heavy rain comes in. We got 2 blowers, we blow the leaves out of the ditches, because we get heavy rain, you know what happens, it washes the leaves down, then it plugs up and it kicks the water out in the road, so.
I got blown this afternoon.
Yeah, I think he was on your road today. The other thing is, we're still ditching, and we'll be doing that until ground freezes, so.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Dan.
Yep, and thank the guys for us.
Yes. Okay, folks, we'll move on to the next order on the agenda, which states here Guilford Center School Leadership Committee, but that will be tabled. Wednesdays doesn't work for them. We got to do things on Mondays for them. So they'll be on our next meeting. Thank you. So we'll move right on to the old business, which are there are 2 issues here, both of which we have addressed in the past. They're quite simple this evening. We already have approved as a select board the declaration of inclusion to be that we would sign such a declaration as a select board with the proviso that a couple of words, there's a little bit of editing to be done. That editing's been done, so we simply have to sign the document this evening. So I'll pass it around. Richard, we'll ask you to stop into the office in the next few days if you can.
I will.
Sign the document. Thank you. Then the second order of business here is the BDCC SeVEDS letter of support, which we also agreed that we would sign once we got an appropriate letter. I will sign it on behalf of the select board if you're all comfortable. Okay. All right, so that is done. Thank you. All right, now we're going to move on to new business, and this is the portion of the select board meeting where we address issues that have not previously come to before the board, or at least not come in the form that they are currently coming. So we will be addressing some issues that we have seen before, but we're going to be addressing them in a slightly different fashion this evening. So we As a select board, one of our jobs is to address the town's budgetary health. We're getting ready soon to enter into the budget creation season. The entire community is invited to attend those meetings. Those will be posted on our website soon. The dates have been set. And we will begin our budget process. We also need to watch our expenditures compared to our budgets on a regular basis. And that's a practice that we're finding that we need to be still serious about, more and more serious about all the time. So we have two issues that are coming before us this evening that are about, as we look at budgets and expenditures. The first issue we're going to talk about is this Vermont Bond Bank loan, which is the $195,000 that we received we discovered was sitting in a bank a couple of years ago. That loan, final payment is due. Unfortunately, through lots of eyes looking at our budget and our process last year, there was no funds budgeted to pay this final loan payment. That payment is $19,793.28. So while we have the funds to pay for that, the select board, it's not a budgeted item. So we need to consider the reallocation of some funds in order to pay for that loan. We have recommendations for what we can do. There are two recommendations. One is that we would authorize application of the principal. That is a portion of the $195,000 of this bank bond fund, to pay the final payment that we owe. That would reduce the amount of money from $195,000 to $175,206.72. That would be at the behest of the community then to spend on the project. Now, we understand in our looking at this, Sheila and I, Sheila's done all the work on this, and thank you very much. But we understand from this that there are a number of ways that the $195,000, there are a number of acceptable uses for this $195,000. One of which is a project in the community on which this money could be spent. And that project, whatever it determines that to be, whatever it comes out to be, needs to be approved by the voters of our town. We've already had experience with this $195,000 as part of the library question. Now the $195,000 will eventually go toward another project in the community. We believe, although we're not absolutely certain, but we believe that another acceptable use is to pay down this final loan payment out of that $195,000. So, am I making sense to everyone on the select board? Do we all understand this? Yeah? So what I'm going to propose this evening is that we, in fact, but that we approve payment of this $19,793.28 out of the $195,000 balance, so long as we find that that's an acceptable use for the money, that we can actually do that legally.
And Zan, how will will this be a conversation with the bond bank to verify it?
No, Sheila, help me here, but the bond bank has already suggested this to us. They've already told us that this is an acceptable use. Now we need to ascertain with Vermont League of Cities and Towns that it is in fact legal for us to do this. We will not do it if it's not legal, of course. But if it is
So we can
legal,
make a motion and have it contingent.
yes, so the motion is contingent on the discovery. But it won't slow us down. If it is legal, we can move ahead. If it's not, we'll have to find another opportunity. And just to be very clear, as I understand it, and what we're checking with Vermont League of Cities and Towns is that the select board can make this action not requiring a town vote in order to do it. We would do it, we may discover otherwise, but we believe at this point that this is acceptable use and acceptable practice for this 195. So I'll attempt to restate my motion, which is that, thank you. I move that we approve the use of the bond principal to pay down the remaining principal loaned, contingent on confirming that the use of those funds in this way is allowed by Vermont law.
I would second that.
Thank you, Brenda. Is there further discussion? I've had all the discussion, sorry. But it's a thicky wicket, all right? Is there any further discussion? Steve?
So, Zahn, if I understand it correctly, the only downside of doing this is that the $195,000 principal pays off the 19,753, whatever that is, 793. The only downside is that it makes the principal then 175,206, which has not been allocated to a particular project anyway.
Right.
So it's just as if we just got a loan for 175,206 in the first place.
Yes,
So it
exactly.
seems pretty simple in that way. If it had been allocated to some project and then you had to pull it back,
Yeah,
that would be a whole different drama. But I think this is a fairly simple look at this.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Thanks for that clarification.
I have one question too. Well, and
Sorry, Jason?
Sorry here. Yeah, I just saw, Peter Root had made a comment on December 27th of 2021 that there was one payment left of that bond bank. He did that in an open meeting, so, and now this is months later, did we accrue interest on that? Did we forget to make that payment? But he had made it clear that there was one payment left for that when they talked to the bond bank. Richard was there, he might be able to speak to that.
I can answer that question.
Thank you, Sheila, go ahead.
So the, as of last November, there was one final payment owed to complete the principal payment. The budget, which was also created last November, neglected to include that payment for the town vote. So the payment was going to be due this November. So we have not paid it yet, we are not in arrears, everything is okay financially, it's just that it wasn't, the 19,000 something was not included in the budget that was presented to the voters along with all the other line items in March.
why was that?
Oversight,
That's a pretty big oversight.
yes it is. It passed by probably, I would guess, it got passed by about 15 sets of eyes.
Uh-huh.
And before it got this far.
We should point out, Sal, that it was that the bond bank, that money in the bond bank was kind of forgotten entirely by many people. That we, when the bond bank told us that, it came as a surprise, really.
That's another thing, like,
So
why
can
would
I-
that be?
So I can answer that question, I think. The bond was executed long before any of the current board members or any of the Finance Advisory Committee, anybody that's involved in town government right now was involved. And there were payments on two bonds for a number of years, one for the fire department and this one. And I don't think anybody really knew what they were for. There was a lot of discovery last fall about this particular Vermont bond fund and what it was for, and that it had never been used for its original purposes, so.
So just to go on with that, Doris, it seems like, a failure of institutional memory. Like this is a volunteer board, and before us, there were members of another volunteer board, and clearly things get lost in translation, and it does seem, in transition is what I mean.
Right, yeah.
And so it does seem like a really big mistake and oversight. At the same time, we're looking, as amateurs, we're looking at so many different sources of funds to try to put together that that it can easily be confusing. And this is also part of a larger ongoing conversation about financial oversight in Guilford that I think we'll all be hearing more about and thinking a lot more about in terms of like how we can have more clarity and more sort of professional oversight than we can with a lot of us.
And that's actually coming right up in the agenda here. We'll hear more about that in a minute. So yeah, maybe we'll address, we won't fix everything, but maybe we'll address some of these concerns because they are very concerning, I agree with you. So let's see, we haven't voted yet. have we?
I don't remember who seconded, I'm sorry.
I did.
Yeah,
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Richard. Okay, so we'll take the vote now. Richard?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Rusty?
Aye.
Miranda?
Aye.
Zahn says aye. Thank you very kindly for that. Now we'll go on to the next part of this reallocation funds discussion. And this is about, it's an issue that we need to put on the table simply because we are going over budget in one area that we need to be aware of and begin to loosen up some funds for. This is in the area of legal fees. Some of you may recall that for many years, Guilford had a local citizen who served as our attorney. That attorney retired a couple of years ago. Her specialty was not municipal law. She donated her services largely and also demurred when she didn't feel capable. So we made the decision. The Selectboard made the decision at her retirement that we would gain the services of a municipal lawyer who works in the state of Vermont, who actually specializes in municipal law. So we negotiated a contract with them. The first contract was in the last fiscal year 2022, and we approved a budget for that contract based on the recommendation of the law firm. They proposed to us a budgeted fee that we accepted, and it was based on their experience with working with communities of our size and the kinds of issues that traditionally come and face a community like ours. So we had a budget figure last year of $2,500. Our budget last year was overspent. We spent nearly $7,000 on legal fees last year, over the $2,500 budget. We would have gone over budget had our normal business been as we expected, but there were a number of unanticipated expenses that came to the community that caused our budget to be 2.5 times larger than it was last year. That's just background I want folks to know about from last year. We were able to manage that from a financial point of view. Everything was okay. This year, we doubled our budget this year based on what we learned from last year. And so we have a budget line item for legal fees of $5,000. We are now 3 months into the fiscal year, and we have already spent 100%, over 100% of our allotted budget fees for legal fees for this year. So we need to find a way to, because we anticipate, or at least Sheila and I anticipate, that there will be more expenses coming our way, legal expenses coming our way. And so, and these are unanticipated. These are not the kinds of normal anticipated legal fees that we are finding in the community. These are issues where we need to consult our lawyers for issues related to suits, for instance, or related to certain allegations against the town of Guilford that we are having to learn about and understand. So we have a recommendation in front of us. The recommendation is to move to authorize to use Fund 007 Reserve Fund general dollars to cover the cost of future legal payments. This fund, which was authorized by town voters, is for covering non-recurring and unanticipated general and highway fund expenses. So the point is, we need to acknowledge that this is an expense that we're coming up against this year, and that we need to have a plan for the Guilford citizens to understand that this is how we plan to spend the money this year. This is how we plan to spend some of those reserve funds.
And so do we need a motion to have a general official accord that we have decided to do that?
I think were things normal, we would be at 6% of budget at a point in the budget year when we should be at 25%. We're at 100%. So we can anticipate if that's already a significant increase, and we can anticipate that the increase will be even greater. So it's not a reasonable variation on a budget thing, so we need to plan from where the funds will be drawn and authorize the use of those funds to cover these unanticipated expenses.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So,
Sure.
Yes, I
I
think
make a motion to that effect.
Thank you, Richard. I will read it once again, just so we're clear, that the Select Board moves to authorize the use of Fund 007 Reserve Fund General Fund dollars to cover the cost of future legal payments.
I would second that.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion?
You got a hand up.
Jason?
You didn't, sorry, Mr. Chairman, you didn't put a number on that, just any amount out of the general fund, or are you gonna cap that off at a certain amount? I know some of this is to do with my appeal to the court. I'm not really seeing it, what I'm doing is suing the town, I'm appealing to the court, some decisions on the select board. And I offered to do this mediation with the VLCT, and it would save the town an enormous amount of money. We could just have an open meeting, and we could get right through this without spending any more money. But I guess my question is, are you gonna put a number on that, or you just, whatever amount it takes out of that fund?
We're not prepared to put a number on this way at this moment because we don't have a sense of what it will be, I guess, is how I would say it. I think we'll probably review it as we go along. I'd rather not limit it at this point simply because we need the freedom to pay for the expenses, the unanticipated expenses. But we also would like to, I'm sure we'll review it. Let's put it at that. I think that would be the way to do it on a regular basis. Did you have comments?
No idea.
All right. Thank you.
I would just say one thing, Mr. Chairman, is that just the simple math on this is that if the same pattern exists right now and it wasn't any more than the 100%, that would be 20,000.
Yeah.
Right.
And if you're anticipating even more, you could expect this cost, whatever it's for, to go to as much as $25,000 or more maybe. So I think it's really important that that this issue keeps coming up so that we know when, why, who, where, why, when, and how all this is being paid.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. I think that's a good point.
And $25,000 for whatever it is, we need to know what it is and where it's going.
Right. We'll.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, too.
Yes.
I'm not sure if this has something to do maybe as the single source vendor, or maybe you could reach out to some other law firms since that's going to be over $2,500 and maybe get some more competitive bids. I know the law firm that you guys are using is very, very expensive. They're from upstate Burlington. Maybe we could put it out since it's going to be over $2,500. We should consider, or the select board, I'm sorry, should consider putting that out for a competitive bid. But like I said, I'll offer all of my, anything that I'm appealing to the court. I'm not trying to sue the town, and I'd be happy to do this mediation, whatever it takes to save the town money. I'm appealing to the court because I don't agree with the solution or the answers the select board is giving. So hey, if it's me, I'd happy to sit down at that table in an open meeting with the VLCT as a mediator, and we could get right down to the bottom of this and front everybody. And boy, the truth just loves to see the light, and I think the town would really, really like to see this. So I think there should be one on this motion. There should be a cap of money. Two, I think that if you're going to go over $2,500, you should consider putting it out for a competitive bid.
Thank you, thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Yeah, is there anyone who feels that there should be a cap at this point?
No, and I don't think there should be a cap, and I think it's gonna be way more than $2,500.
Yeah,
And
it's
the town should
25,000.
understand that.
Yeah, it's already, at this point, it's already, yeah, we're not, it's gonna be more like, as Steve suggested, it may be as high as $25,000. It's already over $5,000 at this point,
In the first quarter.
in the first
In the
quarter.
first quarter.
I have a question.
Yes.
If part of the, what this money is for a lawyer is because of the situation with Jason, and he's offering to sit down with the League of Cities and Towns and talk about it and save money, why wouldn't you do that as opposed to just going right to a lawyer?
Well, I'll be very honest with you, Dolores, this is the first I've heard that offer, that I've understood that offer was there. I can say that I've made the same offer to Jason, and he hasn't accepted it either. So I think we're just not quite on the same page yet about what we're aiming to do. I think we can get there.
Well, I think before we spend 25,000 and up, or no cap to the legal fees, that we really ought to be looking into other ways around it.
I understand what you're saying, yes, thank you. Yeah.
Christina has her hand up.
Okay. Christina?
Mr. Chairman, I offered in an open meeting mediation. I could pull that up for you and send it to the entire select board, but it's in an open meeting. I asked for the VLCT to mediate this, and you said that they gave you advice to not do that. So I know you're aware of it because it's been in an open.
Well, I've forgotten it then, so it would probably be good to have it sent to me. Christina?
Yeah, thanks. I was wondering if you could help clarify to those of us that don't know what mediation would entail. Is that something that's always free? Is it something that's just available to the select board? Before you, I don't know if you, I'm having a brain fog. If you already passed the motion to increase the budget, could you make it conditional on exhausting all other options before? I mean, as we all know, lawyers will charge anything, you know, the select board's gonna be paying for their next BMW before the day is over. So, so my question is, one, what does mediation entail? Is it free to the public body? And two, is it possible to make the uncapped increase in budget contingent on exhausting all other options, including mediation?
Thank you, thank you. I would be open to making it contingent on exhausting other opportunities. On my understanding, at this moment, in my understanding of the universe, my understanding is that VLCT would actually not enter into this kind of a mediation at no cost for the town of Guilford. We have certain insurances that might allow us to do some work with VLCT at no cost, but there are costs for their services as well. But I don't know the story. I don't know the ins and outs of that, so we could discover that.
Well, may I say something?
Yes.
I don't see the motion that's on the floor as cutting off the opportunity to pursue mediation or to explore the offer that Jason made, to explore what the possibilities are of working with VLCT. This is a motion about what to do in the event that we need to access this money. The select board is not eager to spend the taxpayers' money to buy anybody a BMW. We just are taking the advice that we've been given, and we want to be prepared for that. So, I mean, I would be very happy to be part of a subcommittee that tries to come up with a mediation project if we can do that. But I see the numbers that we have so far, and I think we need to do this to protect ourselves.
And I agree with you, Miranda, we have to be prepared.
All right. I think then, thank you. I think we can, I'll move the question and we'll go ahead and vote then on as it stands now, the motion that Richard made. So Richard?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Rusty?
Aye.
Miranda?
Aye.
And Sam says aye. Thank you. This is not easy times, folks. Thanks very much. We're going to move on now to the appointment of an assistant treasurer. I need to speak to the community a little bit more about this, just to provide a little bit of background, and I hope I can do it fairly quickly. Thanks everyone for listening. The two issues that we just dealt with are examples of the kinds of issues that Guilford is dealing with currently. We also have discovered and are finding other issues in our community, and you'll hear from Penny as well. There are financial issues in our community that need greater expertise than we have currently in our serving the town, or that we have had in the recent past. So it's our intention, I think we can, to follow Penny's recommendation going forward, that, well, first let me back up and say, if the community doesn't understand it now, we all need to understand that Penny Marine will be retiring as our town clerk. Great applause to Penny for the incredible services that she has offered our community. In preparation for her departure, she is currently training an assistant town clerk who will likely be elected in March to become our town clerk. And that's Danielle Latulip. Penny also serves as part-time treasurer for our town. That's, at this point, it's an elected position. And so the community is at the will for the treasurer's responsibilities, at the will of our entire community about who might serve in that role. Penny has stepped up to that role because apparently there was no one prior quite willing to do it. So Penny got elected and has served it well. And I think Penny will be, in her letter, she honestly says that we need to consider other options. We need to acknowledge that Penny is retiring soon, and I'm going to read a little bit from her retirement letter, in which she says, "In the 13 years since I took on this role, the underlying fundamentals and challenges of municipal finances have become increasingly complex. That trend will probably continue. Guilford needs a treasurer with expertise in municipal accounting and finances. To that end, I feel the appointment of a qualified treasurer would be the best course of action for Guilford. Should the Guilford Selectboard agree that a move from elected to appointed treasurer is advisable, I will enthusiastically support that question on the March 2023 town meeting ballot and would hope that the voters agree with me. I will be more than happy to work with the Selectboard in the transition period." So, acknowledging Penny's recommendation here that we look at the concept of a treasurer being appointed in our town rather than being elected, and acknowledging that we're considering all the things that have come before us of recent, we as a select board need to consider the Penny's recommendation for this ballot question and begin to move on it and begin to act on it. That means placing it on the March ballot. Whether that we would aim to have an appointed treasurer rather than an elected treasurer. If we agree to that, then there's one other point to this, that the select board should then, with Penny, we should recruit and train an interim assistant treasurer as soon as we possibly can, with the eye that that person would be appointed by Penny at this point. There would be a draft job description that would be drawn up between Penny and Sheila and the Vermont League of Cities and Towns that would outline responsibilities, tasks, and qualifications for the select board to review. And then when it came time, if the ballot measure passes, we would already have an interim treasurer who we might be able to hire at that point as an appointed person. That's a lot to put on the table here. But I think it's very important for us as a select board to begin this process of what it means to put this change on the ballot in March.
So, John, do we need a motion to put that article on the ballot for March? Is that what we're looking for?
Yes. We'll need one, well, that'll be the first motion.
I so move.
All right. Is there a second to that at this point?
I'll second.
Thank you, Rusty. Thank you very much.
I have a question.
Okay.
Is Penny part-time treasurer now? Is there
Yes.
only a part-time?
Yes.
So when you are transitioning this gal or guy or person into the treasurer job, obviously there is an overlap, but are they gonna be then full-time or are they still gonna be part-time?
I think that would still be to be determined. I don't think we know that yet. I think we definitely want to be looking at the budget and being very careful about all of that for sure. This is not an attempt to just blow the budget up again or anything like that.
Uh-huh.
So I think we don't have a clear sense of it at this moment, do we, Sheila?
No,
Okay.
One of the things I'm hearing is that the Vermont League of Cities and Towns has sort of different models of job descriptions. I mean, to be honest, I feel myself fairly overwhelmed by the financial responsibilities that I have as a select board member to be on top of a lot of the questions that I'm not really versed on. And, you know, I mean, I guess my first thoughts when I heard about this earlier today was my first thought was, you know, I wonder if there could be a restructuring where the town, you know, where the select board could have more help with financial oversight. In other words, just a redrawing of job descriptions coming down in the future. But that's just my first thought. I don't know whether anybody else is thinking, you know. I mean, I find it very humbling to try to be up on all of this stuff, and I spend hours each week trying to do that on top of my regular life. And, you know, and I still come up really feeling inadequate. So, you know, I feel as if rather than taking something away from the town, that having more competence could add something
Absolutely.
to everybody's sense of security.
Yeah, I'm not saying one way or another, I just was wondering how it was gonna work out.
No, and we don't know yet,
I think
so
that would
thanks
be-
for asking.
That would be I think we'll have to, that'll be part of the
So,
situation.
I have a question. Are we authorizing Penny to appoint someone? I thought that was what the language was.
Well, at this point, we are considering putting it on the ballot. That's what we're considering right now, is whether or
That's
not
what
we
the
should.
motion is.
The motion is to put this potentially on the March
question
ballot.
of appointing a treasurer.
Yeah.
But who would be appointed? I mean, in the question, who's,
So this, once you
Yeah.
put, that is authorizing select board to appoint a treasurer rather than the town electing a treasurer. Right now, we have an elected
Right.
treasurer.
I
Penny runs
thought-
for both.
okay.
So if we
She's
put it,
resigning from both positions.
so if we put it on the ballot and it passes that we want to make the change from elected to appointed, then the select board is responsible for appointing the town treasurer. In the interim, though, it's possible for Penny to appoint.
That's the part I think.
Yes, and that's not part of this question. It might be part of the next question, but it's not part of this question.
Got it.
All right, I see two hands up. Jason.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, select board members. So something I think we should take into consideration is that Penny has 4 roles right now. She is a town clerk, which is a full-time job. I mean, that is serious. If you would look at the list of everything that a clerk should do, she should not have any other responsibilities. And God bless her for taking on all the roles that she did. She's the town clerk. She is the assistant treasurer, but she actually the elected treasurer. She is also a delinquent tax collector, and she's on this trustees for public funds. I can understand why she would be overwhelmed in this role, though I don't think the election process is the problem. I think that the problem is that we allow one person to take on too many roles. And Penny was one of those people. We took advantage of her and allowed her to take on all these roles. But I wholeheartedly do not believe that you should take away the election process of this role from the public, from the people, and give it to the select board. I think that's taking away the voice of the people. And I think if you want to make a motion, I think what the motion should be is that maybe if you're the treasurer, you can't be the town clerk and collector of public funds or whatever the other 2-3 roles Penny has, and start with that. But to just assume that because Penny couldn't handle this, I can understand that. It's because she had 4 different jobs. We just need someone to be the treasurer. We can elect that one person, and we can find someone in this wonderful town that can do that. We don't need the select board to appoint that. So that's, thank you for listening.
Thank you. Thank you, Jason. Christina?
I actually had a similar question or comment, whether the role would be isolated to just have that role, or whether the role would include being on other boards, commissions, and so forth, because I think that could be an obstacle down the road when the town grows and more responsibilities and such. And it wasn't clear to me either what is at stake, and what's the difference between the role, the position being elected or appointed? Why? I guess that I don't know how else to phrase it. You know, what is at stake in our voting on this in March possibly?
Let's see, I'll try to answer the first two, the first question you had quickly, Christina, that just a little bit of research into looking at other communities, what the role of the treasurer might be. In some communities, it is a straight treasurer role with specific responsibilities. In some communities, you see a treasurer aligned with a grants administrator, or you see a treasurer aligned with a project coordinator. So there are lots of options, lots of models in the state of Vermont that we could draw from and look at. So that it doesn't say that we're going in any direction at this point. There's a lot of research to be done. It's about whether or not the question. Go ahead, Richard.
Another answer to that question is that the appointed position has a supervisor. At this point, the town treasurer is not supervised.
I think that, per Richard's point, I mean, if you know the history of Putney in the very recent past, you know that they had a treasurer in their town, an elected treasurer, who simply did not do the work for 6 to 8 months. And the town was completely stymied, not being able to get its work done because the treasurer was not acting on behalf of the community. So that's an awfully scary story now out there.
It happened to Guilford in the early 2000s.
So there you go. It happened to Guilford as well. So I think Richard's point about oversight is something that we're considering as we look at all of this. It's not here to, Jason, I understand your point about wanting to make sure that we are serving the community well and not taking anything away from elected officials or the power of elections in our community. It's our estimation at this point that the system as we have it, yes, with an elected person who is serving in more than one role, is not working. This is the solution we're looking at right now. and it doesn't mean that this is how it will go. It will be the town's decision, not ours. So we'll go forward and continue with the research and see what happens. But I see your hand up again, Jason. Another comment?
Yeah, I guess, well, I mean, the select board member Wazansky just mentioned that it would be, this role would be supervised now. So I'm assuming it would be supervised by the select board.
Could be supervised by the select board. Ultimately, it could
Okay.
be supervised by the town administrator.
Right.
So that would be on the ballot, then I would assume that it's gonna be supervised by the select board or the town. Now, the select board appoints the town administrator too, so I guess indirectly, the select board would ultimately be responsible for that too.
Which makes
But
it,
anyway, I guess that's kind of here nor there. I guess, you know, when we had to we had to put a petition out there for this, when we wanted to reconsider the library vote and get, you know, so 85 or 5% of the town of Guilford to agree to it. I mean, do you think that would maybe be a fair way to start, instead of the select board making this decision to be put on the ballot, that you would do what, say, we had to do and put it on Guilford to say, hey, get 85 signatures on a ballot? That would be a real good start to say, hey, at least you have some support outside of this room. Because I don't hear any support for this outside of the select board thing.
well, I don't know what to say to that, I guess. Thank you, Jason. I mean, I understand your point. The community is free to aim to put anything on the ballot at any point that they like. Steve?
There's one person in support of this, and it's me. So I think to have a treasurer of the town, with the discussions we just had, of $195,000 out there someplace that nobody knew about, which is now going to be reduced to $175 for a payment that may or may not have been paid, blah, 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 blah. I think to have a treasurer appointed is 100% warranted, and to have a treasurer that's not supervised is dangerous. A town clerk is one thing, a treasurer of the town, unsupervised, you could have so much money in a bag out here under a tree that you wouldn't know that it would take 10 people to find it, and the papers are full of articles just like that.
Yeah, and yes, I think that's part
Can
of
I
it.
call the question?
Okay, thank you, Richard. Thanks very much. So, Richard, this is one of two motions we're going to consider now. So this first motion, are you willing to vote aye?
Aye.
Michael?
Hi.
Rusty?
Aye.
Miranda?
Aye.
Zan says aye. Thank you. So we'll consider, we'll follow through with that motion. Act on it as we go forward. Then the select, can the select board authorize to work with the current town clerk and VLCT so that we can develop a job description for an interim assistant treasurer who could be appointed immediately upon successful recruitment. Upon successful recruitment.
So you want to do that with the VLCT, the treasurer, and me.
So we want to make sure that, yes, so we want to, I'm moving that we would authorize that the town clerk, the town treasurer, the assistant town administrator, work with Vermont League of Cities and Towns to draft a suitable job description whereby we might be able to appoint an interim assistant treasurer upon successful recruitment.
I second that.
Okay, Michael seconds it. Any comments?
I have a logistic thing. So when is Penny getting done after town meeting?
Mhm.
So if you're only putting on the ballot for town meeting for people to vote on about appointing, how is that gonna work out?
I don't know all the ins and outs. I've read through it, so I'm not sure I can quote you right now. We could talk about it, but it's all laid out. There are 45 days for this, and this and that and the other thing. Let's say, for instance, I don't want to go into it all, but there are provisions laid out in statute specifically how this all has to happen. So if let's say we appointed an interim town an interim,
Treasurer.
thank you,
Yeah.
interim treasurer, assistant treasurer.
Assistant treasurer.
Assistant treasurer. Let's say we did that today.
Right,
And that point person, their service could last as long as 45 days past the town meeting if the town meeting successfully votes to appoint a town assistant treasurer, then that, we have 45 days in which to do that, to make that transition. The transition might be completely smooth, it might be the same person, or it might be a different person.
uh-huh,
It's all laid out in statute, we can't deviate from that.
I was just wondering how it would work if she's getting done and it's still up in the air whether it's gonna be voted on or appointed for the next one. How
We
that
would
works.
have, our hope would be, that's what we're voting on right now, is to go ahead and move forward with building a job description so that we can recruit now. Penny can appoint.
Yeah, so you'll have this part-time interim one go through, so
Yes.
either way,
Right,
it's gonna work,
Yeah.
all right,
there won't be any gaps if we're successful, there shouldn't be any gaps.
right.
All right, I'll call the question. Richard?
Aye.
Michael? Aye. Rusty?
Aye.
Miranda?
Aye.
And Son says aye. Okay, folks, now, here we go. With the next item on the agenda is called Open Meeting Law Violation Allegations. And I discovered in the process of learning about this that these allegations, we have 4 allegations in front of us right now, of violations of open meeting law. These 4 allegations need to be dealt with here this evening in the public, so the public can see that that we're going to address each of them, and the public can watch us address each of them. So it's possible for any citizen in our community to allege a violation of open meeting law in just this way. It's a very formal process, and it requires a very formal addressment that we'll give it this evening. So we'll be spending a little time on this. I want to also say that in my experience on the select board, there have been a number of people who have spoken to me privately, citizens who have spoken to me privately about their concerns about one or another violation of open meeting law. That's another way that a citizen can address it with us, is to come speak with us individually and talk with us about these issues. I know that Richard, as prior chair, had the same issue, had citizens come and speak to him. This is yet another forum of how we can address an allegation of an open meeting law violation. So we will take them one by one. I will read the allegation. I will read a response that has been prepared for us, and then I will ask the select board I will move that the select board, we will have discussion. But first I will move that the select board respond, take an action of response, and then there will be a short discussion among select board members primarily. My hope is that this won't go on and on. We'll see how we do. So the first allegation, I will read the allegation to you. On October 5th, 2022, Jason Heron alleged that the select board member Richard Wazansky violated the open meeting law by meeting with town administrator Peter Rood, consultant Isaac Wagner, and representatives of the Vermont Bond Bank to discuss reallocating $195,000 in public funds to a library edition. That's 1A allegation. Or that the select board violated the open meeting law by meeting as a quorum privately to approve the meeting. All right, here's the response that has been prepared for us. Pursuant to 1 V.S.A. section 314 B2, the Select Board is required to respond publicly within 10 calendar days to a written notice of an alleged open meeting law violation. And that's what we're doing right now. The response is the town administrator has the authority under his contract to work on behalf of the Select Board. This includes contacting the town attorney for advice and to draft bond language for the Select Board's consideration. Mr. Root's contact with the town attorney in no way violates the open meeting law. Additionally, per the second part of the allegation, the Select Board did not meet as a quorum privately. So the motion will be that the Guilford Select Board has determined that no violation of the open meeting law has occurred and that no cure is necessary. That is the motion that will go forward. So I would like to get that on the table with a second, if I may, please. We can begin discussing. Thank you, Miranda seconds. All right. So, is that, I want to make sure that the Select Board all understand that this is clear. It is alleged that when Richard was chair of the Select Board, there was a violation of open meeting law because Peter Root contacted because there was a meeting with Peter Root, the Isaac Wagner, and representatives of the bond bank to discuss reallocation of the public funds and the library edition. Or that we met privately. The Select Board does not meet privately. Does everyone understand that?
Yes.
All right. Does anyone disagree with the motion that I have made, that I move that the Select Board has determined that no violation of the open meeting law has occurred and that no cure is necessary?
I agree with that.
Here's a point of Stephen.
I have a point of, Mr. Chairman, a point of concept reference. You said these statements were prepared. Prepared, are you free to say prepared by whom?
By our town attorney.
Okay, so this is another matter of attorney being involved in this to draft the response.
Correct.
So it's been researched on the legal side and you're basing yours on that preparation.
Yeah, I will say very plainly that when this kind of thing comes to the Select Board, our practice is no longer to attempt to respond to any of these kinds of issues based on our understanding, because in this case, I would have failed drastically. The Vermont law is very specific about what needs to happen here. I knew nothing about it, so I'm very happy to have the attorney's recommendations for us about how to move forward. Okay. Jason, I'll allow you one comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If there were tax dollars spent, if you need to do that, I believe the Select Board needs to do that and to have joint authority to do that, which essentially means that one Select Board member cannot act on the authority of the Select Board without a quorum, which needs to be had in an open meeting. If there were taxpayer funds spent, that needs to happen in an open meeting, and there needs to be a motion, all of the things that you're doing tonight. So the fact that a Select Board member met with a town attorney and used town resources without the Select Board's joint authority is clearly a violation of the open meetings law. So and this is why I have to appeal to the court now, this decision, and you're going to use your lawyer, and I'm going to have to spend my hard-earned money to contest this, but it's very clear that no single individual has any more authority to act on the behalf of the Select Board than any resident of Guilford. And Mr. Wazansky, a Select Board member, used town resources, which was our town administrator, and met with the town lawyer using town funds without first getting authorization in the open meeting. Again, I don't know why this is so difficult, but we could mediate this in an open meeting. We could get with the VLCT. We don't need to go through law firms about this. Why aren't we just having this open meeting discussion? We could have a mediator from the VLCT and we could get right to the bottom of this. Instead, you're gonna go into executive meetings and contact the.
Mr. Chairman, may I say that we've already, Mr. Chairman, may I
Excuse
say?
me, Mr. Rosansky, but
We've
you're
already
not
heard
the
this.
chairman, you're not authorized to
We've already heard this
override
argument.
me, you shouldn't be interrupting me.
Jason?
The chairman hasn't given you authority to speak. It's my turn now. If you would like to speak and address the chairman just like I did, if you would like me to stop, you can ask me to stop. You interrupting me, you inappropriate.
Jason, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Jason, I'm sorry, you're breaking up. I can't understand what you're saying, so thank you very much. Thanks for a lot for your comment. I think what we just heard Jason express is a different understanding of the law than our town attorney has at this point. We understand from talking with our lawyers, and I don't want to go into this a lot, but we understand that speaking with the lawyers is totally within the rights that we are currently using our lawyers. The individual instances of speaking with our town attorney is not required in the fashion that Jason is moving. So we'll have to continue to move forward with a misunderstanding at this point if that's what needs to happen, but that's where we are right now. So Richard, did you have anything you'd like to say further?
No, except I'd like to vote on the,
All right.
the motion.
All right, so we have a motion at this point and a second.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, just one last thing. I just want to be clear. I'm not saying that you don't have the authority to talk to a lawyer. You have that as your authority. You don't have the authority to spend taxpayer money to talk to that lawyer unless you do an open meeting. That's what the CDO is. You want to get into law firm advice, you go to the VLCT. The minute you use taxpayer funds, that needs to be authorized in an open meeting. This is very clear, and I'll end there. This is why I have to appeal to the court. I'm not suing the town. I'm appealing these decisions.
Thank you. All right, thank you. And we're working through it. Here we go. Allegation number, let's see, I need to, Richard, how do you vote on that?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Aye. Veranda?
Aye.
Zahn says aye. All right, so the motion carries that the select board has determined that no violation of open meeting law has occurred and that no cure is necessary. Allegation number 2. On October 5th, 2022, Jason Heron alleged that the town administrator, Peter Rood, violated the open meeting law by contacting the town attorney to discuss revising library bond language without select board approval, or that the select board violated the open meeting law by meeting as a quorum privately to authorize Mr. Rood's contact with the town's attorney. Here's the response. Pursuant to 1 V.S.A. section 314B2, the select board is required to respond publicly within 10 calendar days to a written notice of an alleged open meeting law violation. Further, the town administrator has the authority under his contract to work on behalf of the select board. This includes contacting the town attorney for advice and to draft bond language for the select board's consideration. Mr. Rood's contact with the town attorney in no way violates the open meeting law. Additionally, the select board did not meet as a quorum privately. So I will move that the select board determine that no violation of the open meeting law has occurred and that no cure is necessary for this allegation. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Michael. Is there any discussion? Jason?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is kind of the same thing again. You're using town funds. The select board or individual is using town funds. They're using town resources that a regular resident does not have the authority to use. I cannot ask Peter Rood to write bond language for a meeting. It needs to be done in an open meeting. That meeting, that the first time the $195,000 was exposed to the public, the bond language had already been written. They had already met with the lawyer. They had already used taxpayer funds to meet with the lawyer. It's a clear violation of the law, and I don't know what else to tell you, but again, I have to appeal your decision to the Superior Court, and we're going to go through this again, and I offer, once again, mediation to do this so we could save the taxpayer funds of apparently an unlimited budget that you guys voted yourself for earlier today. So, I mean, let's just keep going. I understand where your stance is, but this is very clear violation of use of someone spending taxpayer money without.
Thank you.
One V.S.A. 172, which is
One V.S.A. 172. All right, so allegation number 3. On October 5th, 2022, Jason Heron alleged that the select board violated the open meeting law by refusing Mr. Heron.
Excuse me, sir, did we vote on?
Thank you, we did not. I'm out of it. Sorry, my fault entirely. Richard, would you care to vote? Michael?
Aye.
Rusty?
Aye.
Miranda?
Aye.
Zahn says aye. All right, moving on to the 3rd allegation. On October 5th, 2022, Jason Heron alleged that the select board violated the open meeting law by refusing Mr. Heron a reasonable opportunity to speak at a May 9th, 2022 public meeting, and that select board chair Zahn Eastis violated the open meeting law by consulting with the town attorney without select board approval, or that the select board violated the open meeting law by meeting as a quorum privately to authorize Mr. Eastis' contact with the town attorney. The response is, pursuant to 1 V.S.A. section 314B2, the select board is required to respond publicly within 10 calendar days to a written notice of an alleged open meeting law violation. Further, as Mr. Heron acknowledges in his allegation, he was provided 5 minutes to address an agenda item that was included in the agenda at his request. 5 minutes is a standard and reasonable amount of time for a member of the public to be allowed to speak in an open meeting law. 1 V.S.A. section 312H requires only that the public be provided a reasonable opportunity to express itself at an open meeting, and Mr. Heron was given such reasonable opportunity. Additionally, Select Board Chair Zahn Eastis did not violate the open meeting law in contacting the town attorney for advice. Mr. Eastis is authorized as a Select Board member to seek advice from the town attorney without approval of the full Select Board, and this has no implication on the open meeting law. Additionally, the Select Board did not meet as a quorum privately. So I will move that the Select Board determine that no violation of the open meeting law has occurred and that no cure is necessary. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. That's Michael or Richard.
Richard.
Any comments? Maybe any comment from Select Board members? Jason?
Right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Select Board members. I would appreciate you maybe reading that entire appeal that I'm claiming. You left out a number of key components to that it's very elusive to say that you are answering those questions when you didn't answer any of them. So I'm hoping that maybe you would read what I wrote in public, and that way the public will know exactly what I'm asking and that you're not actually answering any of my questions.
I should have said thank you, Jason.
And I'm gonna have to appeal this, of course, and if you can do this with mediation, I'd appreciate it. I know the town would too.
Okay, thank you. Perhaps we will. We'll see how we go here. And I should have said at the beginning, it's my fault that I didn't say that I would be characterizing all of these allegations under the advice of our attorney. I did not. All of the allegations will be made.
They'll be added to the minutes.
They'll be added to the minutes, so the public will be able to read all of the allegations as they were stated, as they were submitted to the Select Board. So I think the Select Board understands the issues here. It's not. So the Select Board has the full understanding, and the community can read and understand after the fact, I think. So we have
Mr. Chairman, I have one more question.
Yes.
when did the select board or which select board member met with the attorney now? Like I'm saying, I'm claiming you don't have the authority to do that without talking about it in an open meeting and getting a majority vote. So who was the select board member or members that met with the lawyer that wrote this up for you guys before you discussed it in an open meeting?
I did that.
Okay.
You should know that every communication that comes from you at this point is sent directly to our town attorney.
Who authorized that?
I did. No one did.
Oh,
I did.
okay, so, all right, that's perfect clarification, that's all I need to know,
Yeah,
that
sure.
you as an individual have authorized something on behalf of the select board. That's very clear. You are just admitting you are violating the joint authority that's been given to you by an elected official. I don't know how else to do this other than say, can we please mediate this? Because I gotta keep appealing this because you're wrong, and it's clear that you're wrong.
Thank you, Jason.
Again, you're just made my case for me, and I don't know. Anyway, thank you for your time.
Sure, thank you. Thank you. All right, we'll move on. We need to vote on that one, I think. Somebody else keeping track? Do we need to vote here?
Yes, we do.
Yes.
You voted on 3, now you,
We voted on 2, we haven't voted on the third.
You haven't voted on the third one yet.
Thank you. All right, so Richard,
Yes.
you vote aye.
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 Fred.
Aye.
And Son says aye. Allegation number 4, thank you all, Select Board. On October 5th, Jason Herron alleged that the Assistant Town Administrator, Sheila Morse, violated the open meeting law by responding to a public records request on behalf of the Select Board without Select Board approval, or that the Select Board as a whole or certain Select Board members violated the open meeting law by colluding with Mrs. Morse outside of an open meeting. The response is, pursuant to 1 V.S.A. Section 314B2, the Select Board is required to respond publicly within 10 calendar days to a written notice of an alleged open meeting law violation. Hence, we're meeting this evening. Further, Assistant Town Administrator Sheila Morse is authorized under her contract to act on behalf of the Select Board, and her response to a public records request is unrelated to the open meeting law. The Select Board and/or its individual members did not collude with Mrs. Morse outside of an open meeting. She acted independently in her response. The Select Board later independently denied the same public records request Mr. Herron refers to in his allegation. So, I will be moving that the Select Board determine that no violation of the open meeting law has occurred and that no cure is necessary.
I will second that.
Thank you, Miranda. Is there any discussion? Steve?
I think this is the time for me to ask this question, because if you vote, then it won't be part of the discussion. But what if Jason Herron's successful in his appeal, and it's found that all of these were violations, and as the allegations are, what's the penalty? What happens then? Is there
I don't know.
stoning, or
Yeah.
I can speak to that.
what is it, Jason? Oh, I can't wait, sorry. I'm sorry.
I mean, if the court finds in my favor or in favor of my appeal that I think that these rulings are wrong, the town's obligated to pay those legal fees.
I didn't hear
To
that.
pay my legal fees on top of it.
The town is obligated to pay those legal fees and pay his legal fees for contesting the.
Okay, but that's the sum total of the result of this. After it's all done, if it's proven that the allegations are true, the only reparation for that is that you don't have to, you can stand on the principle that they were true.
That, and well, if the chairman would read the entire, what I'm claiming, at the bottom of that one specifically, there's a potential $500 fine for the previous one I asked him to read. So there are other implications. There are, this is illegal, what's going on. There's no other way to put it than this is illegal. now we just funded the select board to spend as much money as they want to try and fight this instead of just doing it in an open meeting like I've been asking for all along. And Mr. Chairman, you have never offered to do this in an open meeting. You've always offered to do this in private. Look, let's do it right now. Let's set.
Jason, I have no interest in doing anything with you right now in an open meeting. I'm sorry. You and I, we can talk about this, but that is not even a proposal that I can remotely accept. Thank you very much.
I call the question, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Richard. We'll move forward then. Oh, okay. One more. Let's let Christina say one thing and then we'll move forward. Christina?
Hi, thank you. I wish there were more people from the town online or in the room participating. I have the feeling that most residents would be sad about, we're a small town and we're neighbors. I would hope that the chair and the select board strongly consider mediation, because I don't know the gentleman's name who spoke, who asked what are the consequences if Mr. Heron's allegations are approved of in court. That basically the result of his winning his court appeal is just more money spent. So what does that actually win for anybody? I mean, if he wants something to change, the only way that would happen is for a proper dialogue to take place. And I think the only group that's able to make that happen aren't attorneys against attorneys who, I'm sorry, with attorneys, yeah, I think you just want to buy a BMW. I think the only people that can really mediate it would be the VLCT. So I hope that the board considers mediating all of these concerns.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I second that,
Thank you.
as long as we're talking that way.
Great. All right,
Can we
so,
move on to the warrants?
not yet, we have to vote on this last question. So, we'll vote now. Richard?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Aye.
Brenda?
Aye.
Zan says aye. Thank you very much. Again, folks, these are strenuous times. There are ways we can begin to solve this, I hope. So we'll keep working on it. Let's keep working. Thank you very kindly for everyone's patience. All right, let's move on to the warrants.
Okay, I move we pay the following warrants. Payroll week 10 to 22 for the sum of $6,101.07. Payroll week 10/9/22 for the sum of $5,403.83. Expense warrant number 2207 for the sum of $22,978.00. Expense warrant number FW7 for the sum of $88 for a total of $34,570.90.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Yes, the largest individual expenditure was for the auditor's budget, Jeanette and Crow, for the sum of $3,500. Our membership in the solid waste district cost the town $3,324.87. The next most pricey item was to WW Building Supply for the sum of $2,575.20 for culverts.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? All right, I'll take the roll. Richard?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Rusty?
Aye.
Miranda?
Aye.
Zan says aye. Thank you very kindly. All right, so the next order of business is on the agenda is other business, and there is none this evening that I'm aware of. Communications, there are no communications were received apart from the 4 allegations of violation of open meeting law that we've dealt with earlier. So at this point, the select board will be moving into executive session pursuant 1 V.S.A 313A3 to discuss the appointment or employment or evaluation of a public officer or employee. In order to do that,
Oh dear.
we will ask the folks that are present in the room to step out of the room until we're done with the executive session. And the folks online, we will move to the waiting room. The motion is to, that we need to make 2 motions here. One motion is that I move that premature knowledge of employment discussions could potentially put the town at significant disadvantage. So I need a second for that motion. Miranda, thank you. Richard? You vote?
I second.
Will you
Oh,
vote?
aye.
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 Michael?
Aye.
Aye.
Miranda?
Aye.
Zan says aye. Okay, so that action allows us to move into the executive session. I now move that the executive session move into executive session per V.S.A. section 313A3, inviting Sheila Morse and Dan Zambrowski to participate to discuss personnel issues. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Richard. Richard, what's your vote?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Zan says aye. It's now 8:42, and I move that we exit executive session at 8:42. So move that. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, got them all. Michael? We'll take Michael. All right. Richard, what's your vote for?
Aye.
Okay. Michael?
Aye.
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 Zan says aye. All right, we are successfully out of executive session. Welcome back to those. We would check outside. Maybe we should just do that.
Here, I could do that.
All right. So in executive session, we discussed 2 issues, and out of executive session, we will bring 2 motions. The first, I will move to authorize Dan Zambrowski to offer to the candidate he recommended to the select board for the open road crew member position. That's the motion.
Second.
Rusty seconds.
Badly worded, I'll figure it out.
Okay. All right. And that motion will be, I should state, and maybe we should go back for a second and say that the motion is contingent that we have both references on file and an appropriate drug screen. Okay. Still second that?
I still second.
All right. Richard?
Yes, indeed.
All right. Michael?
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
Brenda? Zan says aye. All right, that first motion. The
And
second?
congratulations to the
Yeah.
road crew member.
Yeah.
When did we start this, August or the beginning of September?
Yeah.
So,
Then the second motion is to, and I will make it, I move to amend Sheila Morse's contract as Assistant Town Administrator to permit up to 80 hours in a 2-week period in recognition of the increased burden of carrying out the tasks of the Assistant Town Administrator.
I will second that.
Thanks, Veranda. Is there any discussion? Okay,
Thank you, Sheila.
yes, thank you, Sheila. Jason?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I don't know what's going on with our current town administrator. I'm hoping for the best for him.
Yes.
What can you give us an update? That sounds like a full-time job for Mrs. Morse there. We've already got a full-time town administrator. So what's going on? How is this playing out? How long potential? There seems like a lot. And Mrs. Morris has a lot going on her plate too. She's the Finance Advisory Committee Chair. She's the Treasurer of the Friends of Algiers. And now she's taking on more responsibility. I believe she's also a business owner. How long is this? Could you elaborate a little more on just expanding that.
You know what, I think I won't tonight, because the select board does understand the ramifications of this. I'd be glad to talk with any member of the community, just not now. It's because we've been in an over 2-hour meeting already, and it's time to go. There are no improprieties here, there are no malfeasances here.
No, sir, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I'm not saying there's any malfeasance. I'm just saying that I know Ms. Morris has a lot on her plate already. We were just talking about our town clerk to be the town treasurer and all these other things. You're adding more to her plate. You already have a full-time administrator. All I'm trying to figure out is what the time frame is for this. It just seems like to go in executive session to throw this out, and I know it's late, but this is put it on the agenda, and I'm here and I'm asking some questions. I think this is the appropriate time. I know the select board would like to go home, but this is I don't know what is the better time.
I think if you would like to email us the questions, we'd be glad to answer them. Be glad to answer them.
Just to me, not the whole public, just to me, and then what I have to give the answers to the public.
I think you're asking the questions. We'd be happy to answer your questions. As other members come forward to talk to us from the community, we speak with them and talk with them, answer their questions. We haven't chosen to make Peter's Health or Sheila's. We're not allowed to, first of all, to make those
that's
public information.
Sir, that's not what I'm asking. I'm not asking what Peter's Health. I'm thinking you've got a time frame now. You've added 20 more hours to Mrs. Morris's frame. We've already got a town administrator. I believe we're paying full time. We're now paying another full time. I think these are valid questions that I think the select board should have an answer to. I mean, we're already talking about spending extra money on law firm. Now we're adding another a completely full-time role, which we're already paying for.
Please.
And again, it's not my fault that this came on so late in the agenda, but.
Please put your questions into an email and we will address them. They are private issues.
How about I just gave you the questions and then you would address them?
I didn't write anything down. Please put your questions in an email, send them to us, and we will find a way to address them. The information is not public information. I'm not able to speak in a public fashion at this moment about this. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, if there's no other business, the actions taken this evening were to approve approve payment for centerline painting, not to exceed $7,500. We signed a declaration of inclusion. We signed a letter of support. We moved to address 2 issues related to reallocation of funds, regarding the Vermont Bond Bank with a contingent motion, and legal fees. We made an adjustment to our budget or the use of certain funds for that. We talked about the potential appointment of an assistant treasurer and what are the actions there we might take. We addressed 4 open meeting law violation allegations and made an action on each of those. We approved the warrants and we came out of the executive session and made 2 motions, one regarding the town highway department and one regarding the town administrator position. I think those are all the actions.
I think, Don, also that we will contact the Vermont League of Cities and Towns to find out about their mediation services.
That's an action to be taken.
To be taken, that's what I.
Yeah, that's good, to be taken.
Oh, you haven't talked about the actions to be taken yet?
No, that's what we're coming to right now.
Oh, I'm so sorry, I'm just addled.
Yes. All right, so that would be an action to be taken, and I'll take care of that tomorrow or the next day. Are there any other issues to come before this august organization? If not, I would entertain. Thank you, Richard. Is there a second? Rusty, thank you very kindly. Richard, what's your pleasure?
Most definitely, yes.
All right, Michael.
Aye.
Miranda.
Aye.
And Zan says aye. Thank you all very kindly for attending this evening's meeting. We'll see you around.